Picture this. A man stands in a courtroom. His heart is beating. He's breathing the same air as everyone else in the room. He answers the judge's questions in a clear, living voice. There is absolutely no doubt, to anyone with eyes, that he is alive. And the judge tells him, in the eyes of the law, you are dead. And there is nothing I can do about it. This isn't a horror movie. It isn't a riddle. It's a real case that played out in an American courtroom, a man asking a judge for the most basic thing imaginable, to officially be considered alive, and being told no. Not because anyone doubted he was breathing, but because of a single number buried deep in the law, a deadline he didn't even know existed. This is the story of how a living person became a legal ghost, and why, once that happened, the system found it almost impossible to bring him back. To understand how someone alive ends up legally dead, you have to go back to the beginning, when the man simply disappeared. Years earlier, we'll keep him anonymous, but this really happened. His life had fallen apart. The way these stories often go, there were money troubles, a marriage coming undone, and a mounting pile of obligations he couldn't face. Among them was child support he owed and couldn't pay. And so, like a surprising number of people each year, he did the only thing that felt possible to him at the time. He ran. He didn't fake his death. He didn't stage some elaborate scheme. He just left. He drifted, worked odd jobs in other places, and let the years pile up. He fell completely off the grid, no contact, no address, no trace. To the people he left behind, it was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. And here's the thing about vanishing: the law does not leave an empty space open forever. When a person disappears and stays gone long enough, the legal system has a procedure to close the gap. It can declare that person dead, even with no body, no proof, no funeral. It's called a declaration of death in absentia, and it was about to turn this very much alive man into a dead one on paper. So while he was off the grid, living his quiet, disconnected life, the machinery of the law was moving back home, without him even knowing. After enough years had passed with no sign of him, his family took the step the law allows. They went to court and had him formally declared legally dead. From the system's point of view, this made sense. A man had been missing for years. Obligations were frozen. Accounts had to be settled. The law provides this exact mechanism so that the lives of the people left behind aren't held hostage forever by someone who's gone. So a judge signed an order. And in that moment, on every record that mattered, the man ceased to exist. His official status flipped from living to deceased. The case was, as far as the state was concerned, closed. The problem, of course, is that he wasn't actually dead. He was out there, breathing, completely unaware that back home, a court had just erased him. He was a living man with a death certificate's worth of paperwork stacked against him. And that contradiction would sit there, quietly, like a landmine, waiting for the day he decided to come back. Years later, the man resurfaced. He came back into contact with the world, ready to restart his life. And that's when he discovered the impossible situation he'd walked into. He wasn't just behind on his life. He didn't legally exist. Try to imagine the practical nightmare of that. He couldn't easily get a driver's license, because the system had no living person to issue one to. His social security number, that string of digits that quietly underpins your entire official existence, had been deactivated, retired the way a dead person's is. He was, on paper, a deceased man trying to function in a world that runs entirely on paperwork. So he did the logical thing, the only thing he could do. He went to court to fix it. He stood before a judge and asked, in plain terms, to have the declaration of death reversed. Surely, he must have thought, this would be simple. He was standing right there. The whole reason for declaring him dead, that he was missing, had obviously evaporated. How hard could it be to tell a court, "I'm not dead, please update the file"? It turned out to be impossible. Because while he was gone, a clock had been ticking that he never knew about. Here is the twist that turns this from a sad story into a genuinely bizarre one, the detail that everything hinges on. Under the law in that state, there was a strict time limit on challenging a ruling that declares someone dead. The window to contest that kind of order was 3 years. 3 years from the date of the death declaration, and after that, the ruling was considered final. Locked. Essentially permanent. And by the time this man stood in court, breathing, asking to be brought back to life on paper, far more than 3 years had passed since he'd been declared dead. He had blown straight through the deadline, a deadline that started counting down on a court order he had no idea even existed, while he was off the grid with no way of knowing. So the judge was put in an almost unbelievable position. He could see, plainly, that the man in front of him was alive. There was zero factual doubt. But the law didn't give him the discretion to simply fix it. The 3-year window had closed, and the statute tied his hands. By the letter of the law, the ruling could not be overturned. And so the judge said it out loud, legally, "You are still dead." Sit with how strange that actually is. A court of law looked at a living, breathing human being and, because of a procedural deadline, declared that it could not officially recognize he was alive. This is where these cases stop being funny and start being a real warning about how the law actually works. We tend to assume the law is about the truth, about what's real. But a huge part of the legal system isn't about truth at all. It's about procedure, deadlines, filings, windows, and rules that, once they pass, become more powerful than the facts standing right in front of you. The system valued the finality of a closed case over the obvious physical reality of a man with a pulse. And the consequences for him were not abstract. To exist in a modern country, you need to be recognized as a person, to hold an ID, to open a bank account, to be hired, to receive benefits, to sign a contract. He was locked out of all of it, stuck in a legal limbo most of us never imagined is even possible, alive in body, dead on file, and caught in a gap the law was strangely reluctant to close. It's a stark reminder that your legal existence is a separate thing from your physical one, and that paperwork, once it hardens into a ruling, can outweigh the truth of your own heartbeat. So what do you actually take from a story this strange? The real lesson isn't about one unlucky man. It's about that quiet, invisible clock, the deadline. Almost every right you have in the legal system comes with a time limit attached to it. The window to contest a ruling, to file a claim, to challenge a decision, to appeal, these windows open, and then they close, often whether or not you knew they were there. Miss the window, and being completely, obviously right may no longer be enough to save you. The truth doesn't pause the clock. That's the uncomfortable thing this case teaches. The system runs on those deadlines, and it will enforce them even against reality itself, even against a man standing in the room insisting he's alive. The protection the law offers you is real, but it's almost always wrapped inside a time limit, and ignorance of that limit is rarely an excuse. So if you ever find yourself on the wrong side of an official decision, the most important question often isn't, "Am I right?" It's, "How long do I have to do something about it?" Because in the eyes of the law, a living man can be dead, simply because a calendar said so. Tell me in the comments, should a judge be allowed to override a deadline like that when the facts are this obvious, or does the rule have to be the rule? And if this one got you, the video on screen breaks down whether your boss can legally fire you for something you posted online. Go watch it.